I'm Abigail, 36, and until last year, I owned a stunning $2 million ranch in Montana with my husband Derek. Or so he thought. When I discovered he'd been sleeping with his legal assistant Amanda for 2 years, I was devastated. But nothing prepared me for finding out he'd secretly sold our dream property to her for just $5. The property I'd poured my heart and soul into. The home I'd financed through years of careful investing. They celebrated with champagne, thinking they'd left me with nothing. Neither realized I'd already seen the betrayal coming and legally secured my fortune months earlier. If you're watching this from somewhere beautiful you fought to keep, let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe if you've ever had to outsmart someone who underestimated you, because this story is just getting started. I wasn't always savvy about protecting my assets. 10 years ago, I was a financial analyst at a mid-sized firm in Chicago, crunching numbers and building investment strategies for wealthy clients, while barely managing my own modest portfolio. But I was ambitious and determined. I took night classes in real estate investing, saved every bonus, and started small, a foreclosed condo here, a fixer-upper there. Each property taught me something new about the market, about contractors, about tenants, and most importantly, about protecting my investments. Within 5 years, I'd grown my side hustle into a thriving business. I had 12 properties generating consistent income, and I'd quit my analyst job to focus full-time on growing my real estate empire. The Chicago Business Journal even featured me in their 40 Under 40 issue, highlighting my journey from analyst to entrepreneur. That article changed my life in ways I couldn't have imagined at the time. It was at the magazine's award gala where I first met Derek Sullivan. He approached me with a glass of champagne, and that $1 million smile that would eventually cost me so much more. To Chicago's most impressive real estate mogul, he toasted, his blue eyes twinkling with what I mistook for admiration rather than calculation. Derek was charming, witty, and seemingly successful. A partner at a boutique law firm specializing in corporate litigation, he exuded confidence and sophistication. That night, we talked until the venue staff began stacking chairs around us. He listened intently as I described my business model, asked insightful questions about market trends, and shared stories about his high-profile clients. By the time he walked me to my car, I was already imagining our future together. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Weekend trips to New York, surprise picnics in Millennium Park, long conversations about our dreams and ambitions. Within a year, we were married in a small, but elegant ceremony overlooking Lake Michigan. My business continued to thrive, and with Derek's legal background, I felt like we made the perfect power couple. He'd review my contracts for free, offer advice on liability protection, and connect me with potential investors from his client base. For our 3rd anniversary, we decided to expand my portfolio beyond urban properties. Let's find something for us, Derek suggested. Something that could be an investment, but also a place we could eventually settle down. The idea of a rural property had always appealed to me, and when we found the ranch in Montana, it felt like destiny. The property was breathtaking, 50 acres of rolling hills bordered by a crystal-clear stream, with the Rocky Mountains creating a majestic backdrop. The main house was a custom-built lodge with floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed beams, and a stone fireplace you could stand inside. There were also stables for horses, a caretaker's cottage, and a newly renovated guest house. The previous owners had invested millions, but needed to sell quickly due to health issues. At $2 million, it was still a steal. I liquidated 2 of my commercial properties to make the purchase, convinced this ranch would become both our sanctuary and a smart long-term investment. The day we closed on the property, Derek lifted me into his arms and carried me across the threshold of our new home. To new beginnings, he whispered, and I believed with my whole heart that we were building something special together. For the first few years, we were blissfully happy at the ranch. We'd spend weekends riding horses through the valleys, host summer barbecues for friends who visited, and curl up by the fire during the harsh Montana winters. I continued managing my other properties remotely, while Derek split his time between his Chicago office and a satellite office in Bozeman. The arrangement wasn't perfect, but we made it work. Around our 5th year of marriage, things began to change. Derek started taking more business trips that didn't always align with court schedules I could verify online. He became protective of his phone, changing the password and stepping outside to take calls. At first, I dismissed these signs, too busy with my own growing business to dwell on suspicions. Meanwhile, my investment portfolio continued to expand while Derek's law practice faced challenges. A major client took their business elsewhere, and 2 of his partners left to start their own firm. Suddenly, I was covering more of our joint expenses, helping him make payroll during tight months, and listening to his frustrations about shrinking profits. "It's just temporary," he'd assure me. "The firm is rebuilding. We have some promising clients in the pipeline." I supported him emotionally and financially, believing that's what partners do. What I didn't realize was how deeply his professional setbacks were affecting his ego, and how dangerously that wounded pride was manifesting. As I achieved new milestones, acquiring a small apartment building in Denver, being invited to speak at investment conferences, Derek's congratulations seemed increasingly forced. Comments like, "Must be nice to have everything you touch turn to gold," replaced his once genuine enthusiasm for my success. During this period, I reconnected with Barbara Reynolds, my former mentor from my financial analyst days. Over lunch in downtown Chicago, I shared my concerns about Derek's business struggles and subtle behavioral changes. Barbara listened carefully before asking, "Abigail, do you have separate financial accounts? How are your assets structured?" The question caught me off guard. "We have joint accounts for household expenses, but my business accounts are separate. The properties are a mix, some in my name, some joint. The ranch is in both our names since we consider it our forever home." Barbara's expression grew serious. "In my 40 years in finance, I've seen too many women lose everything because they didn't protect themselves. It's not about trust, it's about prudence. You've built something extraordinary, Abigail. Make sure it's secured properly." Her words stayed with me, prompting me to review our financial arrangements. I discovered that Derek had recently refinanced his office building without telling me, using our joint savings as collateral. When I asked him about it, he became defensive. "I didn't realize I needed your permission to save my business," he snapped. "Not all of us can be real estate geniuses." His reaction troubled me deeply. For the first time, I began wondering if Barbara's concerns might be warranted. The next day, I moved a significant portion of funds from our joint savings into my personal account and scheduled a meeting with my own financial advisor. Little did I know that this small act of self-protection would ultimately save me from financial ruin. Or that Derek was already plotting a betrayal that would test everything about our marriage and my resilience. The first concrete evidence that something was seriously wrong came in the form of a credit card statement. Derek and I maintained a joint premium card for household expenses, travel, and entertainment. Usually, I'd review the statements online, but that month, the paper bill arrived while Derek was in court. A $740 charge from Tiffany and Company caught my attention immediately. My birthday was months away, and our anniversary had just passed without any gift from this caliber. Curiosity turned to suspicion when I spotted 3 separate charges from the Langham Hotel downtown, a place we hadn't stayed at together since before buying the ranch. Room service charges at odd hours, spa treatments I'd never received. When Derek came home that evening, I casually mentioned the Tiffany charge. "Oh, that," he said, barely looking up from his phone. "It's a gift for my mother's birthday next month. Wanted to get something special this year." The explanation seemed plausible, but something in his delivery felt rehearsed. When his mother's birthday came and went with no mention of any special gift, the knot in my stomach tightened. I said nothing, choosing instead to watch and wait. The phone calls became more frequent, calls that would make him step onto the porch regardless of weather or time of day. Twice I overheard snippets. "I miss you too," and "She doesn't suspect anything." Each time, he claimed it was a client dealing with a sensitive case requiring privacy. Each time, I pretended to believe him. My college friend Stephanie visited the ranch that summer and noticed the tension immediately. After Derek left for a weekend legal conference, she confronted me over wine on the back deck. "How long has he been cheating, Abby?" she asked bluntly, swirling her Cabernet. I nearly choked. "What? Derek isn't. I don't have any proof that." "Honey, I've known you for 15 years. You're miserable and walking on eggshells in your own home. And he's got all the classic signs, the secret phone calls, the unexplained expenses, the sudden need to look good in designer clothes when he used to live in jeans and flannels up here." Tears I'd been holding back for months finally spilled over. "I don't want it to be true, Steph. We built this life together. This place is everything to us." She took my hand. "If you're not ready to confront him, at least start protecting yourself. Document everything. Secure your finances. And maybe consider hiring someone to find out what he's doing during these conferences." I couldn't bring myself to hire a private investigator. It felt like admitting defeat, but I did start documenting the inconsistencies and securing copies of financial records. I also began paying closer attention to Derek's law firm. A LinkedIn check revealed they'd hired a new legal assistant 6 months earlier, Amanda Pierce, recent law school graduate, former model according to her Instagram profile. Derek had never mentioned her. The situation came to a head when Derek began suggesting I sell some of my properties. "The market's peaking," he argued over dinner one night. "Smart investors know when to cash out. These properties are my retirement plan," I countered. "They generate consistent income. Why would I sell?" "Because we're overextended," he snapped, then immediately softened his tone. "I'm just thinking about our future, Abby. Simplifying our portfolio makes sense right now." A week later, he brought up the ranch specifically. "We should consider putting the ranch solely in my name for tax purposes," he suggested casually. "My attorney says we could save significantly on our estate planning." The request sent alarm bells ringing. "Your attorney? Why not consult me first? I'm the one with the real estate experience." "It's different with personal property," he insisted. "Trust me, this is my area of expertise." I nodded noncommittally, but the next day I called Barbara for an emergency lunch meeting. Her reaction confirmed my worst fears. "Do not sign anything," she warned, her eyes intense. "Not a single document. If he's asking to transfer the ranch into his name alone, something is very wrong." "What should I do?" I asked, feeling sick to my stomach. "First, consult with a top-tier divorce attorney, not for filing yet, just to understand your options. Second, have the ranch professionally appraised immediately. And third, check if there are any liens or encumbrances he might have placed on the property without your knowledge." I followed her advice, meeting discreetly with Catherine Jong, one of Chicago's most formidable divorce attorneys. The consultation was eye-opening and terrifying. In high-asset divorces, it's not uncommon for spouses to hide assets or transfer property before filing, Catherine explained. If your husband is an attorney, he might think he knows enough to outmaneuver you. That's actually an advantage for us. Overconfidence makes people sloppy. The property search revealed no liens yet, but the appraisal came back at $2.4 million, even higher than we'd thought. When I shared this with Catherine, her expression darkened. We need to move quickly to secure your interests in that property, she advised. Based on what you've told me, I'm concerned he's planning something. I still held out hope that I was overreacting, that Derek would have a reasonable explanation for everything. But my intuition and the growing mountain of evidence were telling a different story. The husband I'd loved and trusted was hiding something potentially devastating. And I needed to be prepared for the worst while praying I was wrong. The truth revealed itself on a rainy Tuesday in October. Derek had texted that he'd be working late on a case, something that had become his standard excuse. Instead of accepting it as I usually did, I decided to surprise him with dinner at his office. I picked up his favorite steaks from Gibson's, along with a bottle of the Bordeaux we'd discovered on our honeymoon. Perhaps a reminder of happier times would help bridge the growing distance between us. When I arrived at his firm's building downtown, the security guard greeted me warmly. I'd visited often enough in the early years of our marriage to be remembered. Mr. Sullivan left about an hour ago with Ms. Pierce, he informed me. Said they were heading to Maggio's to work through dinner. Maggio's? The intimate Italian restaurant where Derek had proposed to me. Something cold and hard settled in my stomach. I thanked the guard, returned to my car, and drove to the restaurant. Through the window, I could see them clearly, not reviewing documents, but holding hands across the table. Derek was sliding what looked like a small jewelry box toward Amanda, who accepted it with a kiss that left no doubt about their relationship. I sat in my car, rain streaming down the windows, mirroring the tears on my face. I couldn't confront them, not there, not when I felt so broken. Instead, I drove aimlessly through the city streets, eventually finding myself at our old neighborhood park. I sat on a bench, getting soaked, trying to process the undeniable truth. My marriage was a lie. The man I'd built my life around, the future we'd planned together, none of it was real anymore. The pain was physical, like something essential had been torn from my chest. 8 years of memories flashed before me. Our first date, our wedding, christening the ranch with champagne on the front porch. Had he been genuine then? When exactly had his love turned to betrayal? After hours in the rain, I finally drove back to our Chicago apartment, knowing Derek wouldn't return until morning. I booted up our shared laptop, suddenly desperate for more truth, no matter how painful. His email was logged in, he'd grown careless, assuming I was too trusting or too busy to check. The evidence was overwhelming. Hundreds of exchanges between him and Amanda going back over 2 years. Intimate photos. Plans for weekends together when I thought he was at conferences. Hotel reservations, gift receipts, even a shared digital journal. But what broke me completely were the messages explicitly discussing their future at the ranch, my ranch. Can't wait to see your face when you walk in as the new owner, Derek had written 3 weeks earlier. I've already planned where to put my art studio, Amanda replied. That awful southwestern guest bedroom has to go first. The guest bedroom I'd decorated with pieces from local Native American artists. The room where Stephanie stayed when she visited. Even worse were the exchanges about me. She's completely clueless, Derek wrote. Too busy with her precious properties to notice what's happening right under her nose. Once this transfer goes through, how long before you tell her? Amanda had asked. Right after I file the divorce papers. The timing has to be perfect. She'll be devastated, but that's what happens when you care more about your business than your marriage. I printed everything, hundreds of pages documenting their affair and their plans for my property. Then I went to our bedroom, our supposed sanctuary, and fell apart completely. The sobs came from somewhere primal, somewhere I'd never accessed before. This wasn't just heartbreak, it was betrayal on every possible level. Morning found me hollow-eyed but resolved. I showered, dressed in my most professional outfit, and left before Derek returned. I couldn't face him yet, not when the wound was so fresh, not when I might break down again. Instead, I drove to Catherine's office with the evidence folder. She reviewed it grimly. "This changes our approach entirely," she said. "They're explicitly planning to defraud you of your property. That's not just grounds for divorce, it's potentially criminal." "What do I do now?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. "You fight," she said simply. "And we make sure you win." Catherine wasted no time implementing our counterattack. She immediately connected me with Dominic Vega, a forensic accountant specializing in high-conflict divorces. "Your husband's made a critical mistake," Dominic explained during our first meeting. "He's left a clear electronic trail of intent to defraud. But we need to understand the full financial picture before making any moves." Over the next week, while maintaining a facade of normalcy around Derek, I provided Dominic with every financial document I could access: tax returns, property deeds, bank statements, investment accounts. The picture that emerged was worse than I'd imagined. "He's been systematically moving funds for at least 18 months, Dominic revealed. "Small enough amounts to stay under your radar, but substantial in total. Nearly $300,000 diverted to accounts you don't have access to." More disturbing was his discovery about Derek's law firm. He's been embezzling client funds to maintain his lifestyle and finance this affair. That's why he's so desperate to get control of the ranch. He needs a major asset to cover the shortfall before his partners discover the missing money. This explained his increasing anxiety, the pressure to transfer the ranch to his name. He wasn't just planning to leave me, he was potentially facing disbarment, or even criminal charges. The ranch represented his escape plan. Armed with this knowledge, Catherine arranged an emergency meeting with Barbara and her legal team to create a comprehensive asset protection strategy. The central focus: securing the ranch without tipping off Derek. "We need to act as if everything is normal while legally removing his access to your assets," Catherine advised. "It's a delicate balance." Barbara proposed the solution that would ultimately save me. "We create an LLC registered in Wyoming. They have excellent privacy laws. You transfer the ranch to the LLC, maintaining 100% ownership of the company. On paper, the property still appears jointly owned, but legally, the LLC, meaning you, controls it completely." "Won't Derek notice the transfer?" I asked. "Not if we structure it correctly," Catherine explained. "We'll use a quiet title action that doesn't require his signature, based on the original contribution documentation, showing you provided all funds for the purchase." Fortunately, I had maintained impeccable records proving I'd liquidated my own properties to buy the ranch, with no financial contribution from Derek. The team moved quickly, filing the necessary paperwork while I continued gathering evidence of Derek's affair and financial misconduct. I installed financial monitoring software on our shared accounts and received real-time alerts of his transactions. The evidence became damning: hotel charges coinciding with Amanda's birthday, a weekend spa retreat during a supposed Bar Association conference, thousands spent on jewelry and designer clothing clearly not meant for me. Each discovery strengthened my resolve. The woman who had once trusted blindly was gone, replaced by someone more cautious, more strategic, and absolutely determined to protect what was hers. I approached the situation like one of my real estate deals, identifying risks, securing assets, and planning for contingencies. The hardest part was maintaining normalcy around Derek. I forced smiles during dinner, nodded at his transparent excuses, and pretended not to notice when he took calls in another room. Each moment felt like a performance, exhausting but necessary. The facade won't be necessary much longer, Catherine reassured me during a secure video call. The LLC transfer has been completed. The ranch is now legally protected. We've also secured temporary freezes on your joint investment accounts, citing suspicious activity. When Derek announced another business trip to San Francisco, which I knew from his emails was actually a weekend with Amanda in Napa Valley, I used the time to complete the final steps of our plan. I transferred my personal belongings and irreplaceable items from the Chicago apartment to a secure storage unit, copied all remaining financial documents, and changed the beneficiaries on my life insurance and retirement accounts. By Sunday evening, when I heard Derek's key in the door, I had transformed from victim to strategist. The shell-shocked woman who had sat crying in the rain was gone. In her place stood someone prepared for whatever came next, someone who would not only survive this betrayal, but emerge stronger for having faced it. Derek returned from his San Francisco trip, sunburned and carrying a bottle of Napa Valley Cabernet, a souvenir that confirmed exactly where he'd been. His performance that evening was almost impressive. He'd brought home my favorite takeout sushi, opened the wine, and suggested we eat on the balcony, like old times. "I've been thinking about us," he said, refilling my glass. "About how we started and where we're headed." I nodded, wondering if guilt had finally caught up with him. Instead, he took my hand in what once would have seemed a loving gesture. "Remember that first apartment we looked at? The one with the leaky ceiling and the neighbor who played saxophone at midnight?" I smiled despite myself. "The one where the realtor tried to convince us the mold was vintage wallpaper. We've come so far since then," he continued. "But lately, I feel like we're moving in different directions. You with your properties, me with the firm. Here it comes," I thought, bracing myself. "I want us to reconnect, to secure our future together," he said, his voice taking on the persuasive tone he used in courtrooms. "That's why I think consolidating our assets makes sense now. Starting with putting the ranch in my name for liability protection." I took a sip of wine to hide my reaction. Liability protection. One of my partners was just sued personally for a corporate action. It made me realize how vulnerable we are. With my name alone on the ranch, it would be protected from any potential lawsuits against your real estate business. The lie was so smooth, so reasonable sounding, I almost admired the craftsmanship. Almost. "That makes sense," I said cautiously. "Do you have the paperwork drawn up already?" His eyes lit up with barely concealed triumph. "Actually, yes. Nothing complicated, just a standard quitclaim deed transferring your interest to me. We can get it notarized tomorrow." "Let me review it tonight," I suggested. "You know me. I like to understand everything I'm signing." He pushed the document across the table, watching as I scanned it. The deed would indeed transfer all my interest in the ranch to him, for no consideration. I was supposed to give away my $2.4 million property for free. "It looks straightforward," I said, folding it into my portfolio. "Let me sleep on it." He looked momentarily frustrated, but quickly recovered. "Of course. No rush. It's just a precaution." That night, as Derek slept soundly beside me, I forwarded the document to Catherine, who responded immediately, "This confirms everything." He's accelerating his timeline. Be careful. Over the next 2 weeks, Derek's pressure tactics intensified. He brought up the ranch transfer daily, vacillating between romantic nostalgia and thinly veiled urgency. Meanwhile, I discovered he'd been bringing Amanda to the ranch during my business trips to Denver. The evidence appeared accidentally, a selfie she'd posted on Instagram, quickly deleted, but captured by the monitoring software Catherine had installed on our accounts. In the photo, Amanda lounged on our front porch, mountains in the background, captioned, "Getting used to the view." #future plans #Montana. I found more proof when I made an unannounced visit to the ranch, supposedly closed for the season, but clearly recently occupied. Amanda's distinctive perfume lingered in the master bedroom. A wine glass with pink lipstick sat in the sink. But most disturbing was finding her belongings already stored in the guesthouse closet: designer clothes, personal items, even framed photos ready to replace mine. During a call I wasn't meant to overhear, Derek promised Amanda they'd be living at the ranch within 3 months, 4 at the most. He assured her that the interior designer she wanted could start work immediately after I was out of the picture. The betrayal reached new depths when I discovered architectural plans in Derek's briefcase. Blueprints for extensive renovations to the ranch house. The master suite I'd designed would be converted into Amanda's art studio. The kitchen where I'd learned to make sourdough during pandemic lockdowns would be gutted and modernized with a clean aesthetic. The notes in the margins were in Amanda's handwriting, each change deliberately erasing any trace of me from the home I loved. The most shattering discovery came during my final sweep of our Chicago apartment. Hidden in Derek's bedside drawer was a small velvet pouch containing prenatal vitamins and a positive pregnancy test. The date on the test receipt was 3 weeks earlier. They weren't just planning to take my home, they were planning to start a family there. That night, I called Catherine from a hotel room I'd checked into without Derek's knowledge. "I can't do this anymore," I told her, my voice breaking. "Every day I stay in this marriage feels like another piece of my soul dying." "Then it's time," she said firmly. "We've secured your assets. The LLC transfer is complete and recorded. Your financial accounts are protected. Are you ready for the next phase?" I took a deep breath, thinking of the ranch, the sunrises over the mountains, the wildflowers in spring, the peace I'd found there. I thought of the future I'd planned and the betrayal that had shattered it. Then I thought of the woman I was becoming, stronger, wiser, unwilling to be anyone's victim. "Yes," I answered. "I'm ready." The confrontation began with a seemingly innocent request from Derek. "I've simplified the ranch transfer," he announced over breakfast. "Just one signature and we're done." I examined the new document, noting it was indeed simpler, and even more one-sided than before. This version included language that would give him full authority to manage, sell, or transfer the property at his sole discretion. "This looks good," I said, watching relief flood his features. "I'll sign it tonight, when we're both home. We should celebrate properly." That afternoon, following Catherine's instructions, I prepared a modified version of Derek's document. It looked identical except for one crucial addition, a clause acknowledging his extramarital relationship with Amanda Pierce and her pregnancy. This clause was buried in legal jargon on page 3, easy to miss if one were skimming. I also prepared our dining room table with candles, wine, and a signed copy of the LLC documentation transferring the ranch, documentation Derek had never seen and wouldn't understand without careful review. When he arrived home, his eyes widened at the romantic setup. "What's all this?" "I wanted to make this special," I said, pouring his favorite bourbon. "It's a big decision, transferring the ranch. It deserves a proper moment." He smiled, clearly pleased that I'd finally capitulated. We clinked glasses, and I slid the modified document across the table with a Mont-Blanc pen, his own, a gift from me on our 5th anniversary. "I'm ready," I said quietly. Derek signed without reading, his confidence absolute. The moment the pen lifted from the paper, he pulled out his phone. "I need to make a quick call," he said, stepping onto the balcony. Through the glass door, I watched him speak excitedly, his free hand gesturing emphatically. When he returned, his expression was triumphant, but carefully modulated. "Everything okay?" I asked innocently. "Just a client update," he lied smoothly. Now, where were we? I took a deep breath. "I believe we were discussing your affair with Amanda Pierce." The color drained from his face. "What are you talking about?" "The affair you've been having for 2 years. The one documented in hundreds of emails, text messages, and hotel receipts. The pregnancy you're celebrating while planning to take my home." He recovered quickly, shifting to denial. "Abigail, you're being ridiculous. Amanda is my assistant. Yes, we work closely together, but—" "Stop," I interrupted, sliding a folder across the table. "Here are photos of you together at the ranch last month. Here are receipts for jewelry purchased with our joint credit card. And here," I pointed to a specific printout, "is your message explaining how you'll tell me about the divorce only after the ranch transfer is complete." Derek's expression hardened as he realized denial wouldn't work. He switched tactics immediately. "Fine. Yes, Amanda and I are involved. It wasn't planned, Abby. It just happened. But let's be honest, our marriage has been over for years. You're never home, always focused on your precious properties. When was the last time you asked about my day, or cared about my career struggles?" The blame shifting was so predictable it almost made me laugh. "So your solution was to steal my property rather than file for divorce honestly?" "The ranch should be mine," he snapped, mask finally dropping completely. "I'm the one who found it. I'm the one who handled the closing. You were just the checkbook." Each word revealed more of the man I'd never truly known. "And Amanda? Was she part of the plan from the beginning, or just a convenient accomplice?" "Amanda understands me," he said coldly. "She appreciates what I bring to the relationship, instead of constantly overshadowing me with her success. Do you know how it feels to be introduced as Abigail's husband at business functions? To have your wife bail you out financially while pretending it's a partnership?" His resentment poured out in a torrent of grievances, some legitimate feelings of inadequacy buried beneath layers of entitlement and deception. I listened silently, recognizing that nothing in our marriage had been as it seemed. "Well, none of that matters now," he finally concluded. "You've signed over the ranch. At least you're being reasonable about that." I smiled for the first time. "Actually, Derek, I didn't sign anything over to you. You signed a full confession to your affair and financial fraud." I slid the document back to him, pointing to the clause he'd overlooked. His face contorted with rage as he read his own signature beneath the damning admission. "This is entrapment. No court will uphold this," he shouted. "Perhaps not as a standalone document," I agreed calmly. "But along with the evidence I've collected and the testimony of your firm's financial officer about the embezzlement, it creates a compelling narrative." He lunged for the paper, but I'd already placed it in my portfolio. "You bitch," he hissed. "You think you're so clever? Clever enough to know you've been playing me for a fool? Clever enough to protect what's mine?" Derek's phone buzzed with a text. He checked it, and his expression shifted from anger to triumph. "It doesn't matter what games you're playing, Abby. I've already won." He showed me the screen, a message from Amanda, "Just got confirmation from my lawyer. The deed transfer is recorded. We own the ranch." Derek laughed coldly. "While you've been collecting your little evidence folder, I filed an alternate deed last week. The ranch is already transferred to Amanda's name, for a nominal fee, of course. By the time your lawyers figure out how to contest it, we'll have liquidated it and moved the money somewhere you'll never find it." His confidence was chilling. "So you see, your confession trick means nothing. I don't need the ranch in my name anymore. It's already beyond your reach. He stood, straightening his tie. I'll be filing for divorce tomorrow. Don't bother coming back to the ranch. Amanda's already there, planning the nursery. He picked up his briefcase and headed for the door. I'd say it's been fun, but we both know that's not true. As the door closed behind him, I remained at the dining table, surrounded by candles that had burned low. To anyone watching, I might have appeared defeated. But inside, I was counting down to Derek's moment of realization that his victory was an illusion, and my real strategy was about to become clear. 3 days after Derek walked out, the official notice arrived by certified mail. The Montana property had indeed been transferred from our joint ownership to Amanda Pierce, for the insulting sum of $5. The document bore Derek's signature as grantor, with a notarization date from the previous week. The transfer had occurred while I was in Denver closing on a new apartment building. Derek had used our joint tenancy rights to execute the transaction, without my signature, a loophole he'd discovered in Montana property law that applied to certain types of deeds. Amanda wasted no time announcing her acquisition. Her Instagram feed transformed overnight into a celebration of her new beginning at the ranch. Photos showed her lounging on my custom leather sofa, redecorating my carefully curated spaces, and posing in front of the mountain views I'd fallen in love with. One particularly painful image showed her cradling her barely visible baby bump while standing on the front porch, captioned, "Home sweet home for our growing family #ranch life #Montana mama." Derek's message arrived that same day, a formal email with the subject line, "Resolution of Assets." Abigail, it read, "As you've likely been informed, the Montana property has been legally transferred to a third party. Any attempt to contest this transfer will result in lengthy and expensive litigation that would benefit neither of us. I suggest we proceed with an amicable dissolution of our marriage, focusing on the equitable distribution of our remaining joint assets. My attorney will be in touch regarding settlement terms." The cold, legal language couldn't mask the smugness behind it. He truly believed he'd won, that his legal maneuvering had successfully stripped me of my most valuable and beloved asset. That afternoon, I met with Catherine, Barbara, and Dominic in Catherine's office to implement the final phase of our strategy. The mood was surprisingly light given the circumstances. "He actually did exactly what we predicted," Catherine said, reviewing the transfer document. "Right down to the $5 consideration." Barbara shook her head. "The arrogance is almost impressive. He really thought his law degree made him smarter than an entire team of specialists." "Should we show her?" Dominic asked, gesturing to his laptop. Catherine nodded, and he turned the screen toward me. On it was a document dated 6 weeks earlier, well before Derek's transfer to Amanda. It showed the ranch property had been legally transferred to Mountain Vista Holdings LLC, a Wyoming company with anonymous ownership. The transfer included all mineral rights, water rights, and easements associated with the property. What Derek transferred to Amanda was essentially an empty shell, Catherine explained. The legal description matches, the address matches, but the property had already been legally transferred to your LLC. What they own is worthless, a piece of paper with no actual property rights attached. "Is that legal?" I asked, still struggling to believe our plan had worked. "Absolutely," Catherine confirmed. "We used a specialized, quiet title action, based on the original contribution documentation, showing you provided all funds for the purchase. Because you were the sole financial contributor, we had grounds to clarify the true ownership without requiring Derek's signature." Dominic pulled up another screen, showing the current property tax records. The county recognizes Mountain Vista Holdings as the legal owner. Derek's transfer to Amanda would have triggered a title search if they tried to secure financing or insurance, which would have immediately revealed the problem. They didn't bother because they were planning to sell quickly. So what happens now? I asked. Now, Catherine said with satisfaction, we counterattack. I've already filed for divorce with documented evidence of infidelity, financial misconduct, and attempted fraud. The cease and desist letters to both Derek and Amanda have been delivered, informing them of their precarious legal position. As if on cue, my phone rang, Derek's number. I put it on speaker. What the hell did you do? He demanded, panic evident in his voice. I protected what was mine, I replied calmly. Something you taught me to do, ironically. My attorney says the ranch was transferred to some Wyoming company weeks before. This is fraud, Abigail. No, Derek. Fraud was embezzling from your clients to finance your affair. Fraud was attempting to steal my property through deception. What I did was legal asset protection, advised by legitimate experts in response to your documented intention to defraud me. You won't get away with this, he threatened, but the confidence had drained from his voice. Amanda and I are already at the ranch. We have possession. Actually, you're trespassing on private property. The local sheriff has been notified and should be arriving within the hour to escort you off the premises. I'd suggest packing quickly. The line went silent for a moment. This isn't over, he finally said before hanging up. But it was over, as Derek discovered when he consulted his own attorney. His frantic calls continued throughout the day, evolving from threats to bargaining to finally, desperate pleading. My career is finished if this gets out, he admitted in his final message. The Bar Association is already investigating the client fund discrepancies. Please, Abby, we can work something out. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say to the man who had betrayed every aspect of our marriage, who had planned to leave me financially devastated while starting a new family in the home I'd created. 2 days later, Amanda's tearful Instagram post announced she was returning to Chicago due to unforeseen circumstances. Derek's law firm issued a terse statement that he had taken a leave of absence to address personal matters. Their carefully constructed future had collapsed as quickly as they'd tried to build it on the foundation of my loss. As for me, I received a courier package from Catherine's office containing the keys to the ranch and a handwritten note, property secured. Future protected. Congratulations on your victory. I stood in my Chicago apartment holding those keys, feeling not triumph, but a complex mixture of grief for what I'd lost and pride in how I'd protected myself. The woman who had trusted blindly was gone forever. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and determined to rebuild on her own terms. The legal aftermath unfolded exactly as Catherine had predicted. Derek faced not only divorce proceedings, but professional discipline for ethical violations. The Bar Association investigation revealed he had indeed been embezzling client funds, over $400,000, to maintain his lifestyle and finance his affair with Amanda. His license was suspended pending a full disbarment hearing. Amanda wasn't spared the consequences either. When the managing partners discovered her role in Derek's scheme, she was immediately terminated from the law firm. Her dreams of becoming an attorney were effectively over. Character and fitness committees take a dim view of romantic relationships with married partners that involve financial misconduct. The divorce itself was finalized in record time. With overwhelming evidence of Derek's infidelity and fraud, he had no leverage to contest the terms Catherine proposed. I maintained full ownership of all my properties and investments, plus a substantial portion of our joint assets as compensation for the emotional distress and legal expenses his actions had caused. It's rare to see such a clear-cut case, Catherine remarked during our final meeting. Usually these high-asset divorces drag on for years with both sides fighting over every teapot and picture frame. I never wanted his things, I explained. I just wanted to keep what I'd built. With the legal battles behind me, I faced the more difficult question of what to do with the ranch. Every corner held memories, some beautiful, some now painfully tainted. For weeks, I couldn't bring myself to visit, allowing the property management company to handle the necessary maintenance while I processed my emotions from a distance. Barbara, who had become not just my financial advisor, but a trusted friend, encouraged me to take my time deciding. The property isn't going anywhere, she reminded me. And neither are the memories, good or bad. The question is whether you can create new ones that honor what you've built, without being defined by how it ended. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I finally returned to Montana. The caretaker had maintained everything beautifully, the gardens were blooming, the horses healthy in their pastures. Standing on the front porch overlooking the valley, I felt the complex emotions I'd expected: grief for the life I'd planned here, anger at the betrayal, but also a surprising sense of homecoming. This place had never been about Derek, I realized. It had always been about my vision, my hard work, my love for this slice of mountain paradise. The property represented not just a financial investment, but a manifestation of the life I'd created through years of determination and strategic thinking. That evening, sitting by the fireplace with a glass of wine, I reflected on everything the past year had taught me. The betrayal had been devastating, but in its aftermath, I'd discovered strengths I hadn't known I possessed. I'd assembled a support network of brilliant advisors who had helped me protect what was mine. Most importantly, I'd learned that while trust is valuable, verification and protection are essential. Over the following months, I gradually reclaimed the ranch as my own. I redesigned the spaces Amanda had photographed, not to erase what had happened, but to reassert my vision for the property. I converted the guest house, where she had stored her belongings, into a retreat space for women rebuilding after divorce or financial setbacks. My real estate business continued to thrive, expanding into new markets, with a focus on helping women achieve financial independence through property investment. The painful experience with Derek had revealed a mission I hadn't recognized before: empowering others to protect themselves from similar betrayals. Barbara joined me as a business partner in this new venture, bringing her decades of financial expertise to our workshops and consulting services. "What happened to you isn't uncommon," she often reminded our clients. "But your response to it, that level of strategic thinking and self-protection, that's what sets you apart." As for Derek, I heard he eventually relocated to Arizona after his disbarment, taking a job in corporate compliance, an irony not lost on anyone who knew his story. Amanda returned to her hometown in Wisconsin, occasionally posting cryptic reflections about lessons learned and fresh starts on social media. Their child, a boy, was born 6 months after the divorce, an innocent life I hoped would find happiness despite the circumstances of his conception. I never contacted either of them again. Some betrayals can't be forgiven, only processed and transformed into wisdom. The anger that had initially fueled my strategic planning gradually softened into something more productive: a determination to help others avoid similar situations, and a deep appreciation for my own resilience. On the 1-year anniversary of the divorce, I hosted a gathering at the ranch for the women who had helped me through the crisis: Catherine, Barbara, Stephanie, and others who had offered support and guidance. We sat on the deck watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and purple, sharing stories of challenges overcome and lessons learned. "I've been thinking about writing a book," I confessed to them. "Not just about what happened with Derek, but about financial self-protection for women in relationships. About recognizing the warning signs I missed." "You should do it," Catherine encouraged. "Your story could help countless women secure their futures." To Abigail, Barbara toasted, raising her glass. "Who turned betrayal into empowerment and loss into legacy." As their glasses clinked around me, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced since before discovering Derek's affair. The ranch, my ranch, had become not a reminder of betrayal, but a symbol of resilience and rebirth. The $2 million property he had tried to steal for $5 now represented something far more valuable: the power of preparation, the importance of self-reliance, and the strength that comes from facing betrayal with strategic determination rather than helpless victimhood. The life I'd planned had been shattered, but from those pieces, I'd built something stronger, wiser, and completely my own. And for that unexpected gift of transformation, I was finally able to feel, if not gratitude, at least a sense of hard-won victory. Have you ever had to protect yourself from someone who underestimated you? I'd love to hear your stories of resilience and strategic thinking in the comments below. If this story helped you think differently about protecting your assets or recognizing red flags in relationships, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need this message. Remember, preparation isn't about expecting the worst. It's about ensuring your best future, no matter what comes your way. Thank you for watching, and stay strong out there.